Princess Empress Valith Sarani stood in her throne room and watched the golden light of 3 suns paint colors across the crystal walls of her orbital palace. She had lived here all her life and never once felt afraid until today, the Kethvari. People were strong and proud. They had ruled 12 star systems for 3,000 years. Their bodies were tall and powerful with 4 arms and scales that glowed with inner light. They could heal from almost any wound and lived for centuries. Valith was young by her people's standards at only 70 years old, but she was already the heir to everything her family had built. Around her stood the High Guard, 12 of the finest warriors in the Dominion. Each one had sworn an oath to protect her with their lives. Each one wore armor made from metals that could stop plasma fire. Each one carried weapons that could cut through starship hulls. They were supposed to be unbreakable and absolutely loyal then. There was the human Sergeant Marcus Cole stood by the door in his plain gray uniform. He was small compared to the Kethvari guards, who towered over him by at least 2 feet. He had only 2 arms instead of 4. His skin didn't glow. He couldn't regenerate lost limbs or heal from fatal wounds. By every measure that mattered in the galaxy, he was weak. The Galactic Council had sent him 6 months ago as part of something they called a cultural exchange program. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 5 years before, and they were still trying to prove they belonged. Marcus was supposed to learn from the Kethvari and report back to Earth about how great civilizations operated. Nobody expected him to actually do anything useful. Valith had tried to be polite to the human, but she didn't understand why he was here. The other guards laughed at him behind his back. They called him the pet and the observer. They said humans were barely better than animals who had stumbled into space travel by accident. Captain Rethus once said that a human couldn't even survive a single blow from a Kethvari child. But Marcus never seemed bothered by the insults. He did his job quietly and efficiently. He walked the palace halls at odd hours. He asked questions about security systems and escape routes. He was always polite, but never servile. When Valith spoke to him, he looked directly at her eyes instead of at the floor like the servants did. It was strange, but not entirely unpleasant. Your Highness. Captain Rethus approached the throne with his communicator glowing in his lower left hand. We have received urgent news from the outer systems. Valith straightened in her seat. What news? Your uncle has declared himself Emperor. Rethus's voice was carefully neutral. High Admiral Varath has taken control of the 3rd Fleet and several important military stations. He says your father was too weak and that you are too young to rule. He demands you step down peacefully. The words hit Valith like ice water. Her uncle had always been ambitious, but she never thought he would actually commit treason. Where's my father? The Emperor is on the capital world. Varath's forces have surrounded the palace there. Communication has been cut off. Alarms suddenly screamed through the station. Red lights flashed along every wall. Valith's breath caught in her throat as she saw ships appearing on the holographic display above the throne. Dozens of warships, bearing her uncle's personal insignia, were dropping out of faster-than-light travel all around the orbital palace. Battle stations, Rethus commanded. The High Guard moved into defensive positions, their weapons powered up with high-pitched whines. Then, every guard's personal communicator chimed at once. They all looked down at their devices. Valith watched. Their faces change. One by one, their glowing scales dimmed from bright blue to dark purple. The color of Shamarithus was the first to holster his weapon. Captain? Valith's voice was steady, but her hearts were hammering in her chest. What are you doing? I am sorry, Your Highness. Rethus didn't sound sorry at all. High Admiral, Varath has offered clemency to all forces who stand down. He promises that no harm will come to you if you surrender peacefully. He only wants to spare the Dominion from a costly civil war. You swore an oath, Valith stood from her throne. You swore to protect me. "We swore to protect the Dominion," another guard said. "Vorath is right. Your father is weak, and you are untested. The Dominion needs strong leadership. We cannot risk everything for sentiment." One by one, the High Guard walked away. They left through the main doors without looking back. 11 warriors who had promised to die for her simply decided that their oaths meant nothing when tested. Valeth stood alone in the throne room. Her hands were shaking. She had never felt so small and helpless in her entire life. Then, she heard a sound, the mechanical click of a weapon being readied. She turned and saw Marcus still standing by the door. His sidearm was drawn, and he was checking something on its side. "Sergeant Cole." Vila's voice cracked slightly. "You should go. This is not your fight. You owe me nothing." Marcus looked up at her, and there was something in his eyes that she had never seen from any of her own guards. Not pity or duty or calculation. Something else entirely. "With respect, Your Highness," he said quietly, "I wasn't assigned to protect the Dominion or your father or the political stability of this sector. I was assigned to protect you. That's what I'm going to do. You can't fight them alone." Valeth gestured at the display showing all the warships surrounding the station. "They will send hundreds of soldiers. You are one human with a weapon that couldn't even hurt a Kethvari through their armor." "Probably not," Marcus admitted. He walked toward her with calm purpose. "But I don't need to fight hundreds. I just need to get you somewhere safe. There's a shuttle bay on the lower levels. If we move fast, we might reach it before they dock." "Why?" Valeth demanded. "Why would you do this? Your people barely." "No, mine. We have given you nothing. You could walk away right now, and no one would blame you." Marcus smiled, and it was not a happy expression, but it was genuine. "Back on Earth we have a saying. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Your High Guard was made of strong warriors, but they broke the first time they were tested, me." He checked his weapon again. "I'm just one weak human, but I don't break." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Shouts in Kethvari. The sound of weapons being readied. Marcus moved to the side door, the one the servants used. "Your Highness, we need to go right now." Valeth looked at the empty throne room, at the place where her guards had stood, at the human who was still here. She made her choice and ran toward Marcus. They disappeared through the servants' entrance just as the main doors exploded inward. The hunt had begun. The servant corridors were narrow and dark. They were built for the palace staff, who moved supplies and cleaned rooms while staying invisible to the royal family. Valeth had never been in these passages before, and the low ceilings made her feel trapped. Marcus moved ahead of her with confidence. His weapon was raised, and he checked each corner before moving forward. He seemed to know exactly where he was going. "How do you know this place?" Valeth whispered, her voice echoed off the metal walls. "I walked every corridor and tunnel in the station during my first month here," Marcus replied without turning around. "Couldn't sleep much. New environment and all that. So I explored." "Why would you do that?" "Old instinct, I guess." Marcus paused in an intersection and checked both directions. "Humans evolved as hunters back on Earth. We needed to know our territory, where the dangers were and where the escape routes led. It's built into us." Valeth followed him down a shaft that led deeper into the station. She had always been taught that humans were a minor species, barely worthy of attention from the great powers of the galaxy. But Marcus moved through the darkness like he owned it. They emerged into a wider corridor lined with viewing ports. Through the transparent walls, Valeth could see her uncle's warships docked at every port. Soldiers were already pouring into the station, hundreds of them. "The shuttle bay is 6 levels below us," Marcus said. "If we can reach it before they secure all the docking points, we might." He stopped talking. His whole body went still. Valeth was about to ask what was wrong when she heard it too. Footsteps, heavy and rhythmic, coming from ahead, for HFY warriors emerged from the Arboretum entrance. They wore the black armor of special forces and carried plasma lances that glowed with deadly energy. Each lance could cut through a starship bulkhead. Each warrior was trained from childhood to kill. The leader saw them and laughed. His scales flickered with amusement. The little princess and her pet human, Admiral Vorath, said you might try to run. He was right. Marcus pushed Veleth behind him. Stay back, he said quietly. You think to fight as human? Another warrior said, you are small and weak. Your weapon is a toy. You will die in seconds. Maybe, Marcus's voice was calm, but seconds are all I need. Then he charged. Veleth had seen HFY warriors fight before. Ceremonial duels were part of royal celebrations. They were elegant and powerful, movements that looked like a deadly dance. Strikes that came with warning and honor. What Marcus did was nothing like that. He moved like water flowing through cracks. He was under the first warrior's guard before the lance could come down. His pistol barked twice, sharp sounds that echoed in the corridor. The warrior fell with holes in his throat where the neural cluster sat. The second warrior swung his lance in a wide arc. Marcus dropped to the floor and rolled. The plasma blade passed over him. He came up inside. The warrior's reach where the long weapon was useless. 3 shots into the gaps in the armor. Another body on the ground. Third warrior tried to back up and create distance. Marcus threw something. Veleth saw a flash of metal. A knife buried itself in the warrior's eye. He screamed and fell. The fourth warrior finally got his lance around. The plasma blade caught Marcus across the ribs. Veleth smelled burned flesh, but Marcus didn't even slow down. He crashed into the warrior and they both went down. There was a wet sound. Marcus stood up. The warrior didn't. It was over in less than 10 seconds. Marcus was bleeding. Veleth could see the wound through his torn uniform. It was bad. She could see white bone beneath burned skin. He should have been screaming or collapsing or dying. Instead, he just reloaded his weapon with hands that didn't shake. You're hurt, Veleth said. Her voice sounded far away to her own ears. Yeah, Marcus touched the wound and winced. But I'm still moving. That's what matters. How? Veleth stared at him. That wound should have incapacitated you. You should be in shock. Marcus pulled out a small medical kit and sprayed something on the wound, foam that hardened and sealed the cut. Adrenaline. My body is pumping chemicals right now that block pain and increase strength. It's temporary. I'll crash later. But right now, I feel fine. That's not possible. It's human biology. Marcus started walking again, limping slightly but still moving. Back on Earth. We were persistence hunters. We would chase prey for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We can keep going long after our bodies should have quit. It's not about being strong. It's about refusing to stop. They descended through a maintenance shaft. Veleth's mind was racing. Everything she had been taught about humans was wrong. They weren't weak. They were something else. Something dangerous that had been hiding behind politeness. Your species, she said, as they reached the next level. You weren't always peaceful, were you? Marcus glanced back at her. No. We spent most of our history killing each other. We got very good at it. Wars that lasted decades. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. We nearly wiped ourselves out a few times. Then why did the council let you join? Because we stopped. Marcus checked around the corner. We looked up at the stars and decided to try something different. Doesn't mean we forgot how to fight, though. Just means we choose not to unless we have to. They were on level 4 when the second ambush came. This one was larger. 8 warriors plus a combat mech. The machine was 10 feet tall and armored enough to survive direct hits from ship weapons. Marcus saw them and cursed quietly. He turned to Veleth. Run. Get to level 2 and find the emergency stairs. They'll be focused on me. I won't leave you. Your Highness. Marcus looked at her. and his expression was serious. "I can buy you time, but only if I don't have to worry about protecting you. Please, run." But Valeth stayed. She couldn't explain why. Maybe it was pride or stubbornness or something else. But she refused to abandon the only person who hadn't abandoned her. Marcus saw her face, and something changed in his eyes. Respect, maybe. "Then stay behind me and keep your head down." What happened next would stay in Veleth's memory forever. Not as a nightmare, but as something else. Something that changed how she saw the universe. Marcus didn't fight the soldiers. He fought the environment. He shot out power conduits that exploded in showers of sparks. He triggered emergency bulkheads that came down and split the enemy force. He mixed chemicals from maintenance closets into crude explosives that filled the corridor with fire. When his pistol ran empty, he picked up a broken pipe and used it like a club. When his wounded arm finally stopped working, he fought one-handed. When the combat mech cornered him, he let it under a fuel line and shot the pipe. The explosion knocked them both down. The mech recovered first. It pinned Marcus to the ground, its weapons charged up with a whine. Valeth saw them start to glow. She didn't think. She just moved. There was a plasma lance on the ground dropped by a dead soldier. She picked it up. It was heavy and awkward in her hands. She had never held a weapon before. She drove the lance through the mech's power core. Sparks exploded everywhere. The machine went dead. Its weight collapsed on Marcus. Valeth helped pull him free. He looked up at her with surprise on his face. "Not bad," he said. His voice was weak now. "For a politician. Don't talk." Valeth said, "Save your strength." Marcus shook his head. "No time. They'll send more. We have to keep moving." He stood up. Valeth didn't know how. His body should have quit. But he stood and kept walking 2 more levels. Level 3 passed in a blur of empty corridors. Level 2 was ahead. Then Marcus stopped. His face went pale. Valeth caught him as he swayed. "The adrenaline," he said. "It's wearing off. The loan is coming due." "What does that mean?" "Means all that pain I wasn't feeling?" Marcus smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I'm about to feel it all at once." Marcus collapsed against the wall. His breathing came in short gasps. Sweat poured down his face. The wound in his ribs had opened again despite the foam seal, and blood was soaking through his uniform. Valeth had no idea what to do. She was a princess who had spent her life learning politics and history and art. Nobody had taught her how to keep a dying human alive. "I need to get you medical help," she said. "No time." Marcus forced himself to stand again. His legs shook with the effort. "Medical bay is in the opposite direction from the shuttle bay. We go there and we're trapped. Then we'll surrender. I'll tell my uncle to spare you. He might listen." Marcus laughed, and it turned into a cough. That made him wince. "Your uncle started a military coup. He's not going to spare witnesses, especially not a human who killed 24 of his soldiers." Valeth looked at the bodies scattered behind them. She hadn't been counting. But Marcus apparently had 24 trained warriors dead, and 1 human still standing. "Barely, why is your biology like this?" she asked. "Why can your body hurt itself to keep going?" Marcus started walking again. Each step looked painful. "Evolution. Our ancestors lived on a world that was trying to kill them constantly. Predators and diseases and hostile tribes. The ones who survived were the ones who could push through injuries that should have stopped them. So that's what we became, stubborn to the point of self-destruction." They reached a service elevator. Marcus pressed the button and nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. "They've locked down the lifts," he said. He looked around and spotted a ventilation shaft. "There, we can climb down." Valeth stared at him. "You can barely walk. You can't climb. Watch me." He pulled open the grate and lowered himself into the shaft. Valeth heard him grunt with pain, but he kept moving. She followed. The shaft was vertical with ladder rungs built into the side. It was dark and cold and smelled like recycled air. Marcus climbed down slowly. Valeth stayed close behind him in case he fell. She could hear his breathing echoing in the metal shaft, harsh and labored. "Tell me about Earth," she said, trying to distract him. "What is it like?" "Beautiful," Marcus said between breaths. "Blue oceans and green forests. Mountains that touch the sky. Cities filled with billions of people, all trying to survive together. Is it peaceful?" "Now it is. Mostly, we still have problems, crime and poverty and disagreements. But we're not trying to kill each other anymore. We decided that working together was better than dying apart." They descended in silence for a moment. Then Valeth asked, "Do you have family there?" "A sister. She's a doctor on Mars colony, and a nephew I've never met. He was born while I was traveling here. His name is David. You must miss them. Every day." Marcus's foot slipped and he caught himself. But this job was important. Humanity needed to prove we could contribute to galactic society, that we weren't just primitives who stumbled into space. So I volunteered to protect a princess you didn't know. To show what humans could do, Marcus reached a platform and helped Valeth down. To show that we keep our promises even when it's hard. They emerged on level 2. The shuttle bay was close now. Valeth could see the entrance at the end of the corridor. Freedom was so near. Then Marcus stopped walking. His body went rigid. "They're all ready." "Here," he whispered. Valeth looked ahead and saw soldiers pouring into the corridor from the shuttle bay entrance. They had gotten there first. Dozens of warriors in full combat armor. They raised their weapons. Marcus pushed Valeth into a doorway. "Stay down," he said. He checked his weapon. "I've got 4 rounds left." 4 rounds against 40 soldiers? "I don't need to beat them," Marcus said. "I just need to make them think twice." He stepped out into the corridor and fired. 1 soldier fell. Marcus ducked back as plasma fire turned the air where he had been standing into superheated death. He moved to another position and fired again. Another soldier down. The enemy forces spread out and advanced. Marcus kept moving, using doorways and corners for cover, firing and moving and firing again. His last 2 shots dropped 2 more soldiers. Then his weapon clicked empty. The soldiers advanced. They knew he was out of ammunition. Marcus threw the empty pistol at the nearest warrior, and it bounced off his helmet. Then Marcus picked up a piece of broken metal from the floor and held it like a weapon. "Surrender, human," the lead soldier called out. "You fought well, but it's over." "No," Marcus said. His voice was steady despite everything. "It's not." He charged again, wounded and unarmed and absolutely insane. He crashed into the first soldier with the metal bar, and they both went down. More soldiers piled on. Valeth heard the sounds of fighting, of Marcus refusing to quit, even when he had no chance. She couldn't watch him die alone. Valeth ran from her hiding spot. She picked up a plasma lance from a fallen warrior. It felt heavy in her hands, but she remembered how she had used one before. She swung it at the soldiers surrounding Marcus. The blade cut through armor and the soldiers fell back. More warriors turned toward her. She saw their weapons come up. She knew she was about to die, but at least she wouldn't die as a coward who let someone else fight for her then. Marcus was beside her. He had broken free from the pile. He had a soldier's knife in his hand and murder in his eyes. They stood back to back, a princess and a human, facing impossible odds. "If we die here," Valeth said, "I want you to know, you are the bravest person I have ever met." "We're not dying here," Marcus said. "I made a promise to protect you. I keep my promises." The soldiers advanced. Valeth raised her lance. Marcus readied his knife. Then a voice echoed through the corridor, a voice that made everyone freeze. "Hold your fire, High Admiral." Vorath walked through the ranks of his soldiers. He was tall even for a Kethvari. His scales glowed with deep purple that showed his royal blood. His forearms were decorated with medals from a dozen campaigns. He looked at Valeth. with eyes that held no warmth. "Niece," he said, "you have made this more difficult than it needed to be. Your father is already in custody. The capital has fallen. The fleet follows me. Surrender now, and I promise you will be treated well." "You're a traitor," Vela said. Her voice shook, but she stood firm. "You have betrayed everything our family stands for." Vorath's scales flickered with annoyance. "I have saved our family. Your father was leading us to ruin with his weak policies and soft diplomacy. I'm strong. I will make the Dominion great again. By killing your own blood?" "If necessary," Vorath looked at Marcus. "And I see you have found a loyal pet. The human has performed better than I expected. He killed 24 of my soldiers. Quite impressive for such a primitive species." Marcus said nothing. He just stared at Vorath with cold eyes. "You know what I think, human?" Vorath continued. "I think your species would make excellent soldiers once we have properly domesticated you. You have spirit and endurance. With proper training and control, you could serve the Dominion well. We could pacify your homeworld and recruit your warriors. Think of the honor." "No," Marcus said quietly. "No?" Vorath laughed. "You don't have a choice. Earth is weak. Your ships are generations behind ours. Your weapons are inferior. We could conquer your world in a week." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But you won't. And why is that?" Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Because you'd have to get through every single human first. All 10 billion of us. And we don't quit." Vorath's amusement faded. His scales darkened with anger. "You are one wounded human with an empty weapon facing 30 warriors and a fleet in orbit. What exactly do you think you can do?" Marcus didn't answer with words. Instead, he moved toward the wall where emergency panels showed the station systems. His hands danced across controls faster than Velith could follow. Warning lights began flashing throughout the corridor. "What are you doing?" Vorath demanded. "Something humans are good at," Marcus said. His fingers kept moving, improvising. The shuttle bay behind Vorath suddenly depressurized. Emergency. Bulkheads slammed down. Half of Vorath's soldiers were cut off on the other side. The remaining warriors looked uncertain. Marcus turned to face Vorath. He was still bleeding, still wounded, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You're going to order your ships to stand down. You're going to release the Princess Empress, and you're going to surrender yourself for trial." Vorath laughed, a deep sound that echoed in the corridor. "Or what human? You have no weapons. You can barely stand. What threat could you possibly pose?" Marcus walked toward a maintenance panel and pulled it open. Inside were fuel lines and power conduits and other systems that kept the station running. He pulled out a plasma torch that workers use for repairs. "I'm standing next to your station's main fuel reserves. I can see the readouts from here. 20,000 tons of refined starship fuel. Enough to power your fleet for months. You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I?" Marcus activated the plasma torch. The bright flame cast shadows across his face. "You said humans are primitive. You're right. We're so primitive that we invented weapons that could destroy our entire world. We built bombs that could turn cities into ash. We created diseases that could kill billions. And then we decided not to use them. Not because we couldn't, but because we chose not to." He held the torch near a fuel line. "But you know what, Admiral? Right now I'm not feeling very civilized." Vorath's scales flickered between colors, anger and fear mixing. "If you ignite that fuel line, the entire station will explode. You'll kill yourself and the princess." "Yes," Marcus said calmly. "I will, and I'll kill you too, along with all your soldiers on this station, and your flagship that's docked at Port 7. I checked the readouts. Your personal ship is directly connected to this fuel system." Velith understood now. Marcus wasn't bluffing. He was calculating, showing Vorath exactly what the cost would be. "He'll do it," she said. Humans don't bluff about things like this. She's right, Marcus agreed. We're very good at game theory back on Earth. We invented something called mutually assured destruction. The idea that if everyone has weapons that can kill everyone else, then nobody uses them because nobody wants to die. Except, he smiled, that only works if everyone values their own life more than their goals. You're insane, Vora said. Maybe. Marcus's hand trembled slightly. The torch flame wavered. Or maybe. I just understand something your species doesn't. That some things are worth dying for, like keeping a promise. The corridor fell silent. 30 seconds passed. Vorath's scales kept changing colors. His warriors looked at each other. Nobody knew what to do. Velith watched Marcus. He was dying. She could see it. His face was pale. His eyes. Breathing was shallow. He had lost too much blood and pushed his body too far. But his hand stayed steady on the torch, ready to follow through. Think about it, Admiral, Marcus said quietly. Is becoming Emperor worth dying for? Because I promise you, if you try to take the princess by force, I will burn this station down with all of us inside. And your crew dies here. Your fleet loses its commander. The Dominion tears itself apart in civil war. Everything you wanted, gone. You're bluffing. Vorath's voice lacked conviction. Am I? Marcus moved the torch closer to the fuel line. Want to find out? Velith stepped forward. Uncle, please, end this. No more death. Surrender. And accept exile. The council will be merciful? Merciful? Vorath's eyes blazed. I am saving our people from weakness. No, Velith said, and her voice was stronger now. You are proving that strength without honor is nothing. This human has more honor in his weakest moment than you have ever shown. While they argued, while Vorath focused on his niece, Marcus was doing something else. Velith saw it from the corner of her eye. His free hand was working. A control panel, entering commands. His fingers moved with desperate speed. What are you? Vorath started to say, then every holographic display in the station activated at once. Velith's face appeared on all of them, her voice transmitted. From her personal communicator, her royal authentication codes broadcast across open channels. This is Princess Empress Valeth Sarani, a recorded voice said. I hereby declare High Admiral Vorath guilty of high treason. He has betrayed his oath. He has seized military forces illegally. He has attempted to murder the royal family. Any forces that continue to follow him are traitors to the Dominion. Marcus had hacked the station's broadcast system. He had recorded Velith's words while she was speaking. He had transmitted them to every ship, every station, every planet in the Dominion and beyond. You fool, Vorath lunged toward Marcus. You've doomed yourself. But Marcus wasn't done. Oh, and Admiral? I also sent that broadcast to the human fleet, specifically to the Dreadnought, Defiance, which has been on routine patrol 3 light years from here. They received your threat to invade Earth, and they received my distress signal. They should be arriving right about. Space around the station rippled. Reality tore open as ships dropped out of faster than light. Travel. Not Kethvari ships. Human ships. 6 of them. Smaller than the Dominion. Vessels but faster, and their weapons were already powered up. Lead ship's communication broadcast through every speaker. This is Captain Sarah, Chun of the Earth, Defense Force Dreadnought. Defiance. We have received a distress call from Sergeant Marcus Cole. Any hostile action against him or Princess Empress Velith will be considered an act of war against humanity. Stand down immediately. Vorath stared at the display showing human warships surrounding his fleet. How? He whispered. You couldn't have. The transmission lag alone. I sent the signal 4 hours ago, Marcus said. When we first entered the service corridors, I've been buying time ever since, waiting for the cavalry to arrive. Velith looked at Marcus with new understanding. Everything he had done, every fight, every delay, it had all been calculated. He had been playing for time from the beginning. 4 hours. Voreth's scales went dark. You knew they would come? I know my people, Admiral, Marcus said. His voice was getting weaker now. We don't abandon our own, ever. That's what makes us dangerous, not our weapons or our ships, but the fact that we stand together. Always. The human ships moved into attack formation, their weapons targeting Voreth's fleet. The Kethvari ships were more powerful, but they were scattered and unprepared, and their commander was trapped on a station with a suicidal human holding a torch next to the fuel lines. You have 60 seconds to surrender. Captain Chun's voice echoed. Or we open fire. Voreth looked at his warriors, at the station systems, at the human ships, at Marcus with his trembling hand and his burning torch, at Velith standing tall and proud. Stand down, he said finally, his voice broken. All forces stand down. I surrender. Marcus lowered the torch, turned it off. His hand finally stopped shaking. Smart choice, he said. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed. Velith caught Marcus before he hit the ground. He was unconscious and his skin was cold to the touch. She screamed for medical help. Kethvari doctors rushed forward with equipment. Human medics from the Defiance arrived minutes later. They worked together to stabilize the sergeant who had refused to quit. The next 3 days passed in a blur for Velith. Her father was rescued from the capital and returned to power. Voreth was arrested and his co-conspirators were rounded up. The High Guard who had abandoned their posts were stripped of rank and exiled to the outer colonies. The Dominion had survived its closest brush with civil war, but Velith spent most of those 3 days in the medical wing, watching doctors work on Marcus. His injuries had been catastrophic. Burns and cuts and broken bones and massive blood loss. A Kethvari with similar wounds would have regenerated in hours. Marcus took days just to stabilize on. The third day he finally opened his eyes. Velith was sitting beside his bed. She had barely slept. When she saw him wake, she felt something release in her chest that she hadn't known was tight. Your Highness, Marcus's voice was hoarse. Did we win? Yes, Velith smiled. We won. My uncle is in custody. My father is safe. The coup failed. Good. Marcus tried to sit up and winced. Ow, everything hurts. You pushed your body far beyond its limits. A human doctor said as he checked the monitors. You're lucky to be alive, Sergeant. Another hour, and you would have died from blood loss. But I didn't, Marcus said. That's what matters. The doctor shook his head. Humans always. Acting like near death is an accomplishment. Over the next week, Marcus recovered slowly. Human medicine was impressive in its own way. They had techniques for managing pain and accelerating healing that even the Kethvari found interesting. Velith visited every day. They talked about Earth and the Dominion and what had happened. I still don't understand, Velith said during one visit. Why you stayed? You could have walked away with the others. You owed me nothing. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Back on Earth, before we had space travel, there was a saying, no man left behind. It came from our military. The idea that you never abandon your team, even if staying means dying. It's not logical. It's not smart, but it's who we are. Even for someone you barely knew? Especially then, Marcus said, because that's when it matters most. Anyone can be loyal when it's easy. True character shows when it's hard, Velith thought. About her High Guard, warriors who had trained their entire lives, who had sworn sacred oaths, who had walked away the moment they were tested. And she thought about one human who had stayed despite having every reason to leave. My father wants to meet you, she said, when you're well enough. I'm just a sergeant, Your Highness. I'm nobody important. You're wrong, Velith said. You're the most important person in the Dominion right now. You saved the royal family. You proved that humans are not weak. You changed everything. 2 weeks later, Marcus was well enough to walk. Velith's father, Emperor Corvin Serani, held a formal ceremony in the great throne room. Representatives from every world in the Dominion attended. The Galactic Council sent observers, and a human ambassador stood with obvious pride. Marcus stood in the center of the room in his dress uniform. His arm was still in a regeneration cast, but he stood at attention. The Emperor approached, and his forearms held different symbols of honor. Sergeant Marcus Cole of Earth. The Emperor's voice echoed through the hall. You have performed a service to our Dominion that can never be fully repaid. You protected my daughter when all others failed. You showed courage beyond measure. You embodied the highest ideals of honor and duty. The Emperor placed a medal around Marcus's neck. I hereby grant you the rank of Lord Protector of the Empress. You will command all forces assigned to defend my daughter. You will have authority over military matters concerning the royal family. You are the first alien in our history to hold such rank. The room erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy about it. Velith could see some HFY nobles whose scales flickered with displeasure. But no one could deny what Marcus had accomplished. After the ceremony, Velith found Marcus on a balcony overlooking the planet below. He was staring at the three suns as they set. Lord Protector, she said with amusement. How does it feel? Weird, Marcus admitted. I'm just a soldier. I did my job. I don't need medals or titles. Maybe not. Velith stood beside him. But the galaxy needs to see what you represent. Needs to understand what humans are capable of. And what's that? Loyalty. Real loyalty. Not based on power or advantage, but on choice. You chose to stay. When you could have left, that choice changed everything. Marcus was quiet. Then he said, You know the Galactic Council is going to debate this for years. What to do about humanity. Some will say we're too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to die for causes. What do you think they'll decide? I think they'll realize that dangerous and unpredictable can also mean reliable and steadfast. Marcus turned to look at her. Humans don't make promises lightly, but when we do, we keep them, even when it costs us. Maybe especially then. Velith thought about the past weeks, about everything she had learned. The High Guard used to say that loyalty was about strength. Whoever was strongest deserved loyalty, but that's not real loyalty, is it? No, Marcus agreed. Real loyalty is a choice you make every day. To stand beside someone even when it's hard. To keep your word even when it costs you. To refuse to quit. Even when quitting makes sense. My father is reforming the High Guard. Velith said, New oaths, new standards. He wants to make sure what happened never happens again. Good, Marcus said. But oaths and standards only matter if people choose to honor them. You can't force loyalty. You can only choose to give it. Weeks turned into months. Marcus took his new role seriously. He trained new guards using human tactics. He taught them about persistence and dedication. He showed them that being small or weak didn't matter if you refused to break. The Galactic Council held endless debates about the human question. Some wanted to restrict human expansion. Others wanted to embrace them as allies. The debate raged on, but Velith had already made her decision. She issued a formal declaration that was broadcast across the Dominion. Humanity has proven itself to be worthy of trust and respect. The first proposed a formal military alliance between the HFY Dominion and Earth. Let our people stand together as equals. The declaration caused controversy, but it also started something new. Other species began to reassess their views of humanity, to look past the physical weakness and see the strength beneath. One night, Velith found Marcus in the training hall. He was working with young recruits, teaching them hand-to-hand combat. The students towered over him, but they listened with respect. You're changing our military, Velith observed. Just sharing what I know, Marcus said. Your people are strong and skilled. They just need to learn that strength isn't everything. Sometimes the battle is won by whoever refuses to quit. Is that a human philosophy? It's the only philosophy that matters. Marcus helped a young recruit correct his stance. In the end, wars aren't won by the biggest weapons or the strongest soldiers. They're won by the people who care more about their cause than their own survival. Valeth watched him work, and she thought about how different everything was now. Her uncle was in prison. Her father had reformed the government. The Dominion was stronger than before. And all because one human had refused to walk away, Marcus. She said when the training session ended, "I never properly thanked you. You gave me a medal and a title." "Your Highness, that's thanks enough." "No," Valeth said. "You gave me something worth more than my life. You gave me faith. Faith that loyalty still exists, that honor still matters. That sometimes the smallest person in the room is the one who stands tallest." Marcus smiled. "You know what the funny thing is? Back on Earth, I'm nobody special. Just one soldier among billions. But here, in this moment, I gotta show the galaxy who we are. Not as conquerors or warriors, but as people who keep their promises." "And what promise was that?" "The promise humanity made when we joined the galactic community," Marcus said. "That we would be good neighbors, good allies, good friends. That we would stand beside those who needed us, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." Valeth looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue world that had given the galaxy something it didn't know it needed. A species that valued loyalty over logic, that chose honor over advantage, that refused to abandon their posts. "I think the Council will eventually accept humanity," she said. "Not because you're strong, but because you're reliable, in a galaxy full of beings who calculate costs and benefits. Humans are the ones who simply do what's right." "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe we're just too stubborn to know when to quit." They both laughed, and in that moment Valeth understood something profound. The galaxy didn't need another powerful empire. It needed something humanity had in abundance: the willingness to stand alone if necessary, to face impossible odds, to refuse to break. The Princess Empress had been left alone by her guards, all except one human soldier, and that human had shown her what true strength looked like.